Alright, so it's finally here. We're going to do the Exotek build on the Losi Micro Rally. So pick this guy up here at the local hobby shop. About 78 bucks, I think, something give or take. And this does work for the rally or the short course. I'm assuming they're both the exact same wheelbase. Alright, so I'm going to get everything out of the package. See what's in there. And first off, instructions, very minimal. Really look through them. Do once over, twice over if you need to. Make sure you understand everything before you start the build, because it was a little bit, abstract, some of the pieces I needed to put in there, especially the part where to retain the servo arm. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But, right, so that's the chassis plate. And we have some Exotek stickers. Alright, so I get the body off the car. Pop off the body clips. And get started with the build. Alright, so when you get the carbon fiber parts out, and in the instruction it says to get all your prep work run. So we're going to do the side cutters to get them off the little part tree. It's better to leave more and just file it off after than to cut it too short here. So you can see all the little burrs on the side there. You have to take those off. Dremel will do pretty easy work of that. So you want to make sure to clean them off. And the main piece is the straight bar at the end here. I'll show you that. That's the one that needs to be cleaned up the most. If anything, that's the one that's going to hang up your steering. Right. Come along good. That's just a spacer. You want to clean it up for it to look nice, but it's not a big deal. This is the guy that really matters. Like I said, clean it up nice and good. No rough edges, and you should have no issues with your steering. Alright, so when I unplug the servo, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws on this guy here, and the whole top comes off. So 4 on the chassis itself, 2 on the rear, and 1 in the front. Alright, so once you get the servo lead out, which was the hardest part, it comes off quite easy. Gonna plop off the servo. It has 4 screws that we're going to need to take off. And the reason why is we have to reroute the servo wire to the side instead of the bottom there. It's going to get caught up in the way the new servo mount is. So with the top off, we're just going to drill a small little notch. You don't need much. Servo wire lead is pretty thin. Alright, so that fits nice to the side. Put the cap back on. Reinstall all 4 screws. And that part's done. Okay, so now on to the ESC receiver combo. 4 screws at the top here. That comes off. Plug the motor. Pull out the battery lead. And the hardest part is pushing the switch through. You have 2 little tabs or little ears that hang out to catch the switch. Really hard to get out, so I'm going to struggle with that for a little bit here. Alright, so now finally out. Put that to the side. Motor has 3 screws at the bottom. Take those out, it will come off, and there's like a little plate up top that's going to come off as well. Alright. So here to get the rear assembly off, you have 4 screws. Alright, so that's moving freely. move our way to the front. Another 4 here. And all comes off as one piece. It's going to be easy to put back in given that it stays together like that. So I'm going to get into the hardware bag. Get everything out. Now here for the chassis. I'm going to make sure anything that's going metal on metal, we're going to have to put some blue thread lock on. So now we're going to put in the battery retainers. Two countersunk screws underneath, and then you have a post up top. So now with that in, put the last post on the other side to keep it from driving or rubbing on the center drive shaft. And that's what's going to hold your battery in place. Alright, so a little dry fit with the servo, make sure everything's going to fit. And on this one, if you do get the chassis, you're going to notice that there's 2 different mounting positions. I chose the most forward position for the servo. Just trying to get all the screws pretty tight fit in there. Alright, so make sure, again, thread lock anything metal on metal. So you have 3 here for the servo mount. I think I fumbled that a couple more times. Alright, so that's done. At first I looked at it and I couldn't figure out how that would mount, but once you put it in, you have 4 set screws hold the servo in. Oh, and that's that little brace I was talking about. Make sure that that is nice and clean before you put it on, because you can have rubbing with the steering arm. So thread locks on the bolts. Make sure that doesn't come undone, assuming it's going to get quite a bit of vibration. And here are the set screws. So make sure to put some thread lock on that. You have 4, 2 on both sides, and that's what holds the servo in place. And it is pretty secure. I thought it looked flimsy at first, but it holds it nice and tight. Alright, so last 2 on this side. The last one was a little bit tough, rubbing on one of those battery posts there. Alright, so now that that's done, let's throw it on. Get everything measured up. Dry fit, and we're going to reassemble just like we took it out. So 4 screws up front. Alright, no binding, everything smooth. I'll make our way down to the rear assembly. So another 4 back there should do it. And again, no thread lock needed on this. The diff cases are all plastic, so these won't be backing off. Alright, so now to the motor mount plate. It's a 2-part assembly here. Screw that in. Make sure healthy dose of thread lock. Can't emphasize that enough on these small micros. I've had issues with my micro T. It's all aluminum, so I rattled that thing pretty much apart. Alright, and now is the upper motor mount plate. Get a good nice fit there. And what we're going to do is we're going to not put it in too snug here. Just make sure that we have a little bit of thread on those screws so we can move it around. And we're going to set our gear mesh after. Alright, so now we're going to put the center brace. It has the U-shaped spacer at the back, and at the front it's just the one circular spacer. So 1 screw up front does it, and then we have 2 at the back. That ties everything in and stiffens up the chassis. So this here is going to be your ESC plate. 2-sided foam tape little bit of play so it's not too tight. And then you have 2 screws on both sides, or 1 screw, one on both sides. It's going to be held in there oddly enough at an angle. Alright, so trying to get it to stay in there. That foam is maybe a little bit thick, but we'll make it work. Alright, so that's there, nice and secure. Just going to put 1 screw up front here. We want to be able to move it around, make sure we have enough room for all our leads. And what we'll do is we'll finish, tie it up tight afterwards. Alright, and here's the top, which will be retaining the battery. Our last piece of carbon fiber. We have 1 screw on both sides. Alright, so I'm going to plug in our servo. The motor, push the battery lead to the side. Same thing with the on-off switch. And the build is complete. Looks pretty nice, and it's got a lot of room. The main reason I jumped on this here is for the battery compartment. Probably gonna end up taking that out, throwing a piece of Velcro on there so I can put a much bigger battery. So with the body on, you don't see much difference, but from underneath you can see it's a lot cleaner, and I'm assuming quite a bit lighter. Alright, so thanks for watching. Please don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe.